Through all the chaos for the Washington Nationals, I do have one good takeaway over this past week, and that is the Nationals. They've got a new sense of direction, and it's a good one.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, we are the Locked On Nationals podcast, where we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Again, it is your team every single day. And later on in today's show, we will be discussing the Washington Nationals recalling some of their top prospects. Bobby Barrels, Robert Hassel III has made a comeback to the major leagues. He had a big weekend. We'll have that discussion for you later on in today's show. And also Drew Millis, shout out to him. We'll have that discussion later on in the show today. And in the second segment, typically it would be a National Stock Report Monday, but the Nationals, they had a historically bad weekend that we do have to discuss, unfortunately. But I want to start off just kind of recapping the past few weeks and really kind of hone in on the trade deadline, because while the Nationals might be a 100-loss team, this team does have a sense of direction, and it's a good one, in my opinion. But this episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order, only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. So as we were saying, the Washington Nationals have a new, fresh sense of direction, and I am here for it. And I think that this is kind of a rude awakening for a lot of people. But right now, the Nationals, I do believe, are on the right track. Now, before we get too caught into it, what does the right track mean? The right track does not mean they're going to win 35, 40 games over the next 2 months. It does not mean that the Nationals will lose 70 games over the next 2 months. It means that this organization and the eyes within the baseball operations department are finally facing frontward. And I think right now, after this deadline, after the MLB draft, I feel really good about where the Nationals are headed, and here's why. I think the Nationals right now, they have lacked for years someone who is all in on analytics, someone who is all in on data, someone who believes in the 21st century of baseball. It's a different game now. The Nationals under Mike Rizzo, it was that scouting, boots on the ground era. And while there was a time for that, and while it was successful for him, it became pretty clear and evident to me that this has totally passed him. Baseball nowadays is about getting an edge. Baseball nowadays is taking analytics and using them for your direction. The reason why baseball is such an analytical-driven sport is because you have a 162 game sample size. You have a good direction and a good sense of what guys are each and every single day based on those maths and analytics. And while, yes, anything can happen, it doesn't mean that you are going to win if you use analytics correctly. The Oakland A's use analytics. They're not the best organization in baseball. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they use it. The Tampa Bay Rays, they do it. Maybe not the Pirates, but a team like the A's and a team like the Rays, they're better set up for future success than what the Nationals are. At least that's what they were. I believe that the Nationals are finally adopting that, and Mike DeBartolo said as much over this past week. One thing that Spencer Nussbaum of the Washington Post asked Mike DeBartolo in his post-trade deadline press conference, what I thought was very interesting. He gave kind of an insight of what the Nationals were thinking and kind of how they were thinking. And again, in years past under Mike Rizzo, they have never been this analytics data organization. And Mike DeBartolo made it known that this year was different. And he had this to say, quote, I do think, now again, this was asked about how they inputted analytics and data into their decision-making. And he says, I do think, and this is no knock on how we've done things in the past, everybody has their own recipe for success, and everybody has their own style of how they do things. I think probably some of the conversation in the room this year was a little different in some ways. Maybe some elements of player tracking data or how we're evaluating players was somewhat different. But we also had strong scouting takes as well, and we're talking to scouts. So I think some of the conversations, what was discussed, were a little bit different, maybe a little bit more emphasis on the numbers in certain situations, but we were also still heavily valuing what our scouts on the ground saw all across the country. Beautiful answer. That is what we want. And this is not to say that Mike Rizzo was not doing that. Mike DeBartolo, it was his right-hand man. Mike DeBartolo, as we now know, is heavy in analytics. He went to an Ivy League school, and he is applying that to baseball now. This is the kind of direction that you want from this front office. And I'm just singling out the front office here because ownership is a whole different discussion at this point. But if you can get backed from ownership with this equation here, no pun intended, that is a beautiful recipe. And again, the Nationals need to go all in on analytics to make this thing work. Because right now, this team is ran like a small market team. Wrong. It should not be a small market team. But here we are. So you have to make adjustments. And these adjustments are actually happening with Mike DeBartolo at the helm. I'm not here to pound on the table and say Mike DeBartolo should be the guy. The Nationals should have a widespread search at this point for their next president of baseball operations and their GM. But the things that he is saying and the things that he is feeding me right now is making me feel good. And I have not felt this way about this team in quite literally probably 3, 4, 5 years. This season has opened up the floodgates for the fan base. The fan base is livid. I have never seen this fan base up in arms the way that it has been this season. But right now, maybe it's just Mike DeBartolo saying these things. But I am actually hearing and seeing the new change of direction from this team. And while it is hard to see every single day watching this team, it's not going to happen overnight. But what they did do this trade deadline, I thought was really impressive. And one kind of instance of what I saw from them, again, going back in analytics, was actually the one guy that they got, Christian Franklin. Christian Franklin gets on base at a very frequent rate. And I even saw one tweet about this, which I thought was pretty funny, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. But the reason why that is important is that he walks at a 17% rate right now down in the minor leagues. He gets on base. I'm going to assume that you have seen the movie Moneyball. What did Brad Pitt say? He points at Jonah Hill and he says, he gets on base. That is part of the data and analytics for this team, and that is how teams get to that next step. That is how teams kind of just revolutionize the game of baseball and make it a numbers game for them. It simplifies it in a sense. You bring it down to math, you use the data, you collect the data, and you use it to your hopeful advantage at some point. I actually have trust that this thing is going to work. I have trust that this baseball operations department, they are finally operating in the 21st century. And again, it is not a knock on Mike Rizzo. If you were to ask Mike Rizzo to be an analytics guy, that would never work out. It simply would not. He is a big market GM, boots on the ground, spending money, making savvy moves. This is not his forte. But this is Mike DeBartolo's move. And I actually believe in it. I actually see it. And I think this does work out ultimately for the best. Again, you are not going to see the results happen overnight. You are not going to see this team flip into a winning ball club. But you will see in 2026, hopefully a better, much improved season from this team because you do have talent. And we'll see what they do this offseason. Do you trade away Mackenzie Gore? Do you use the analytics and have that on your side? Maybe. But the Nationals finally have that sense of direction that we have all been wanting for quite some time now. And Mike DeBartolo, again, he's the interim GM. The interim tag is still there. But he has proven that he's not just saying we're using analytics. like in years past. He is using it and using it wisely. Moving off guys like Alex Call. In the draft with Eli Willits, drafting him number 1 overall. These are all analytical-minded moves that have allowed the Nationals to kind of spread their wealth out. And as we saw with this trade deadline, I think Alex Call, the trade that you made, sending him to the Dodgers and getting back 2 solid pitching prospects in return. You notice how it's not just one big-time prospect. You're kind of spreading that wealth out a little bit. These guys may not turn out to be superstars, but these may be very impactful players for this team moving forward. And again, even if they don't work out, even if these guys are busts down the line, let's just say that they are, you can trade them. You can move them for pieces. You are doing the right thing here. And these are how the good teams operate and the good organizations operate. So it may be tough to see the foot view here for the Nationals. I can actually kind of see it, and I do kind of believe it. It's going to be a long road ahead. The Nationals have a long ways to go to climb up that mountaintop again. But I do like the sense of direction, and I believe in it. And honestly, it is a breath of fresh air for this team, and they need it. So you probably won't see me ranting too much over the next 2 months about how the Nationals are losing every single game. This just comes with the territory. We're going to have to sit this one out, and hopefully things work out for the best in the next few seasons. So, but you can stay tuned to Locked On Nationals to hear the most of that. But now I said I'm not going to be ranting too much, but the Nationals had a historically bad weekend, and oh my gosh, it was bad. We'll get into that after this. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And the other day I went golfing and I had my 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, and I was kind of feeling a little bit weary on that 6th hole. I finally poured up my 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, and bam, I had a great taste drink right in my right hand. And all of a sudden I started to hit my good shots that I typically don't hit. So 5-Hour Energy, there's no studies there, but it did make me feel better. And if you feel better, you probably play better as well. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So as we were saying, the Nationals had a historically bad weekend. And this is not a drill. After Friday night 9-run outing by the Nationals offense, well, that went to bed real quick. And the storyline of this weekend was the Brew Crew. Oh my gosh, they are a buzzsaw, and the Nationals ran into them. The Brewers racked up 56 hits over a 3-game series against the Washington Nationals. It was the most by an NL team in a 3-game series since the Brooklyn Dodgers collected 57 hits against the Pirates from June 23rd to June 25th in 1950. 1950. The most hits after, oh my gosh. After the Nationals literally just trade away everybody, and I spend the first 12 minutes of this show talking about how I feel good about the sense of direction, I now have to tell you guys about a historically bad weekend by the Washington Nationals. So let's get into it here. First and foremost, again, this is a bad baseball team. This is kind of what you expect. When you have Mitchell Parker going on the bump for the Nationals on Friday night's performance. He gave up 12 hits in his 4 innings. And then in Saturday, Jake Irvin comes in the game. And yes, we all know what happened there as well. He gave up 8 hits in 4 innings and 5 earned runs as well. And then Brad Lord yesterday, while he was a little bit better than what the stat line may indicate, he also was not at his best for the Nationals as he went 4 2/3, 3 earned runs. He did give up that big home run, had 6 strikeouts. He was definitely the best pitching performance by far this weekend. But guys, the early season struggles from what we saw with this bullpen, it's back and it's better than ever. After that game yesterday, Ryan Ludus was optioned to AAA Rochester. And again, the Nationals right now, this bullpen is going to be like the reason why I would want to turn off a Nationals game at this point. The bullpen is all-time bad yet again. And it's looking like that way moving forward. Now, the Nationals, again, they could go into this thing maybe trying to play this analytics game and maybe try to play the matchup game. But right now, who do you turn to in this bullpen? Who can you say to yourself, I feel good about these guys? Because right now with the Nationals, you've got Cole Henry. I like Cole Henry a lot, actually. I like Andrew Lara at times. I like Jose Ferrer at times. But Jose Ferrer has proven to be wildly inconsistent. He will go 4 outings when he strikes out 8 guys. You're like, okay, he's kind of found his stuff again. And then yesterday happens. You're just like, oh my gosh, find the zone, number one. And when you do find the zone, don't have it be middle the way that it was in yesterday's outing. This is going to be a frustrating watch moving forward. And as we saw this past weekend, the frustrations just mounted for the Washington Nationals. And by the way, yesterday, the Milwaukee Brewers, again, put up 14 runs in that game. Saturday, the Milwaukee Brewers, they put up 8 runs. And on Friday, they put up, check some notes real quick, 16 runs. This team got shellacked by the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, let me just say this. The Brewers are the best team in baseball right now. They are a buzzsaw. They have got great pitching. They've got a solid bullpen. They have an awesome offense that, as we have seen, it is a very potent one as well. I was at the game on Friday, and let me just say this. The Nationals kind of seemed a little deadbeat. This team just knows that they stink. They have their vacations planned in October, most likely at this point. They know what's coming. They know that there's going to be a lot of changes this offseason, and hopefully things will get better. But watching this weekend made me realize just how much it sucks watching a really bad team. And the difference between this year's team compared to 2024 and in 2023 was that those few seasons, these past few, we realized that we were going to be a bad ball club. This season, the reason why, in my opinion, Davey and Mike Rizzo got fired was because they told everybody that we were ready to win. We were ready to win. No more of this rebuild stuff. No more of it figuring out. We have figured it out, and we are going to win. And I believed in it. I think a lot of people did buy into that fact. We never thought they were going to be like a 90-win team. No one ever expected that. But we were kind of talking ourselves into 75, 80 wins and a team that would be kind of, riding that line of 500 baseball. That's what a lot of people believed in. But this past weekend just goes to show you how far off this Nationals team is. You have no one in the bullpen at this point. You have traded away some of your top guys. And by the way, that's what you should be doing. You trade away your closer, Kyle Finnegan, who shuts down the door, by the way, in Detroit this past weekend for his first save as a Tiger. That was kind of unfortunate to see. You've seen guys in the past, whether it be trading away Blake Trinan in years past. Like, the Nationals have done this time and time again. But I will say this past weekend especially stunk. Watching the Brewers just walk and put things in perspective to really kind of show that this team, it's far off. And right now, the Nationals bullpen, It is going to stink to watch them moving forward for these next 2 months. But good news for them, they will have some arms coming back healthy, hopefully relatively soon. But speaking of getting healthy and getting right, Robert Hassel III, what a weekend for him. And I'm excited to see what he does for this team moving forward, and a couple other young pieces as well. But I want to talk about Bobby Barrels after this. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Like tomorrow, the Washington Nationals, I've got a James Wood anytime home run, and it's so much more fun to watch my Nationals play. Go up against some very good opponents, you can still make it more fun with James Wood betting an anytime home run, or maybe it's a CJ Abrams over 2 hits in any category you want. Then yes, FanDuel makes it possible. So if you're new to FanDuel, well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So yes, the Washington Nationals had a historically bad weekend against the Milwaukee Brewers, but that's not all the bad that happened, because the Nationals did have some solid performances from some young guys. But I do want to get into Robert Hassel III, because after all the news and all the moving off of guys and trades and all that other different stuff, the Nationals called up one of their top guys, and that was Robert Hassel III. And I thought he looked really good this past weekend. So let's highlight it, because Bobby Barrels, he can barrel the baseball, as we know. And Friday night, in his first game back since June 15th, he came off the bench, had 2 hits. He had a double in there as well. He had 2 RBIs, and I thought it was a really impressive showing from him, because what we saw down in AAA from Robert Hassel was, number one, he was finally elevating the baseball again. And with elevating the baseball, obviously becomes higher exit velos, higher chances of hits. That is, again, an analytics approach here. And then on Saturday, he added a home run. That was a mammoth home run, by the way, and 2 RBIs again. And he did have that 1 strikeout. And then yesterday was hitless against the Brewers. But he has this new profound approach, in my opinion. And I think one thing that he actually said in his post-game presser after Saturday's performance was he's kind of swinging with some intent. And I believe in that. Like, he has kind of tweaked his swing a little bit. I think you've all probably noticed it at this point. I won't break down the different verticals or whatever you want to talk about here, but he does have a new found approach that he kind of adopted in AAA. And a lot of people made note of that when he was first sent back down to AAA Rochester. And he does have this new approach that I think is really interesting. And as we saw, it equated to a double on Friday night and then a big home run in Saturday's game. So kudos to Robert Hassel III. I thought he had a really good weekend up with the Nationals. But one guy that we've been calling for, at least I have been calling for a lot, is Drew Millas. Drew Millas, while he is not a qualified catcher at this point with what he has done, and his one game that, was phenomenal yesterday against the Brewers, he had 2 hits, he had 2 doubles in there, 2 RBIs, and this is just kind of what I want. In my opinion, right now, between Keibert Ruiz and Riley Adams, Drew Millas is the answer at catcher. He is the better defender than both those guys. And right now, he's as good as a bat as Keibert Ruiz and Riley Adams, and probably even better at this point. Drew Millas is not your long-term answer. We know that. But Drew Millas might actually be something for this team. And you actually might be able to make the case for him to be the starting catcher for the duration of the season. In fact, if I was Mike DeBartolo, the first thing that I would say to Miguel Cairo is this: start Drew Millas every day. And it might not be fair to Keibert Ruiz losing his job to an injury, and Riley Adams has not performed the way that he has in years past. But as we saw yesterday, the Nationals are experimenting. They are putting Riley Adams over at first base to see what he can do for them there. They need to find answers. And in my opinion, Keibert Ruiz and Riley Adams are no longer answers at the catcher position. But Drew Millis, he's an unanswered question at this point. And I'm willing to figure that out over these next 2 months. So, of course, we'll be covering it here on Locked On Nationals. So stay tuned for all the discussion surrounding the catchers and as well as the young guys. But thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So let me know what you guys think about this new sense of direction. And am I just a little bit crazy trying to find some positive stuff after a pretty tough week here in DC? Maybe I am, but you know what? I do feel that way, and I do feel that there is a new sense of direction. So buckle up for the last 2 months of the season. It's not going to be a short one. It'll be quite long, in fact. So we'll have all the discussions for you surrounding the Washington Nationals moving forward. But until then, have a good one. Go Nats.